Hey everyone, welcome to Wildlife Inspired. I'm your host, Scott Keys, and this is your channel for photography, for wildlife, and for wildlife photography. And in today's video, a quick thoughts video specifically around animals and ethics. And in this case, we're going to talk about baiting for photography. Now, I'm going to explore this. I'm not going to make this a black and white issue. I'm going to explore the gray in this issue. I'm going to give you some scenarios. We're also going to talk about maybe different cultural perspectives on this and how people in different areas of the world may feel differently about this practice. I'll get to all of that right after this. Now, I've actually been wanting to make this video for a long time. I keep a list of topics, and I've had this one over there, and it just says baiting, and it's probably been there for well over a year. And I finally decided to sit down and talk about it. And I tried to flesh out my videos, like what do I want to go with? What's the theme, especially with these quick thoughts videos? And the theme of this really was about, is the practice of baiting always bad, or should it be? And I'm not leading you with that question. That really is the premise of this video. I am a person, by the way, who, a couple things. I don't believe in black and white in this world. My brain just thinks in shades of gray. And it's a dangerous place to be sometimes, because at some point, the gray has to change. And we have to cross the barrier between what is acceptable and what isn't, for us personally, or even as a society or a community. So for my bird photographer community, what's acceptable when it comes to baiting? And a lot of you have already said none of it. I'm going to challenge you on that a little bit. So I broke this continuum up, and I think I broke it up pretty fairly. I broke it up into a couple areas. And I'm going to give you some examples of how baiting may not really be harmful, but just because it's not harmful doesn't make it the right thing to do. Normally when we talk about ethics, we talk about impact to the subject. So is what we're doing changing the behavior of the subject? And this goes for wildlife and ethics in general. As a policy, I don't do a ton of videos about ethics. And I just tell you from personal experience, I've learned that we hear that expression, haters gonna hate. And my experience tells me that if I put out any video around ethics, somebody's gonna try to come after me for some ethical violation. And I consider myself to be pretty sound on ethics and photography, but as soon as we enter the realm of wildlife photography, I'm telling you, we are changing the behavior of our subjects. There's this idea about no footprints left behind. It is a great, great premise to live your life on. However, it is probably never practical, meaning at some point when we walk out of our house and we walk into the woods, just being there has an impact on wildlife. If you truly believe that, you really can't go into the woods. You can't experience the wilderness because you are impacting it. So that's when we talk about this continuum, that's a stretch to say, well, if you're really ethical, you don't even go into the woods. So I think most people would agree, okay, I understand what he's saying. There's some gray in here. Let's just minimize the impact. So if we know we're going to have some impact, how can we minimize it? And I want to carry that concept into baiting. So let's just start with what baiting is. It is essentially just drawing or luring in something with food to get a better opportunity to look at it. And we often think of this in some scenarios. We may put out carrion, so carcasses, dead things, in hopes that vultures, raptors, something will come in to feed on it. We have often heard of a scenario where people will bait owls. So they'll put a food source out for owls. Primarily it's mice or rodents. But it doesn't have to be that extreme. So when I do this continuum, I'm going to break it into a couple sections. I'm going to do the one is the most benign, and that is bird feeders. When we think about bird feeders, most people don't challenge the ethics of bird feeders. After all, I'm spending my money to feed animals. That's a good thing. Some people even think it's noble. In this idea of black and white, that would cross the line. We have influenced the behavior of subjects, in this case to achieve a photograph or to get an image, but it could just be for our own personal viewing pleasure, right? Now, again, in this scale, I would put that at one end and say, I use feeders. I think a lot of people do. I have some advice with feeders, and that's just be real careful with it. I don't like to retrain birds to depend on my feeder. So for example, I have feeders, I'll set them up when I'm doing a photo shoot or I'm testing some equipment. In the winter when there's snow on the ground and I think maybe those birds are getting a little hungry, I'll put some food out there for them. But I try not to put it out there every day all the time so that they get dependent on it. I do have this sense that it's better for them to figure out how to feed themselves than it is for me to feed them. But for most people, and I know some people are going to say, well, nope, that's not okay either. That's good. But for most people, bird feeder's kind of benign. Let me go into a second scenario. This is a much kind of an example of baiting, and I'm going to use an example of an owl. So I have a property. I have screech owls that live behind my house. And let's say I've even had them come into my bird bath and take baths in the like January and February when the water wasn't frozen. It's pretty cool. Like I know they're back there. If I took a field mouse, which every now and then they get into my house. One year they lived in my Jeep. I had to put a trap in there. Now I try to be humane. I put a humane trap in the back of my trunk. I put some cheese in there, drove them 2 miles down to a farm and released them into a farm. But what if I took one of those field mice? It's what the owl is going to eat probably. And I put that mouse at night into a small area where it couldn't get away. And I encouraged that screech owl to go down and get that mouse. Now let's talk about the ethics of that. Sounds bad. It doesn't impact the subject. In other words, I'm not retraining that subject's behavior. It's a one-time deal. It came in, got the mouse, just like it would have if I didn't put it there. But I did. The mouse is prey. It's going to likely get eaten by something at some point anyway. So, no harm, no foul, right? Like I didn't do anything that the owl wouldn't have done by itself, and it's not something that's not part of the mouse's life cycle, so it's part of its diet. That's what the owl eats. I haven't introduced foreign food, or you run the risk of imposing disease or putting disease out into the owl. So that's tricky, right? Like, is that okay? I mean, it's my house, not my owl, but I mean, it lives in my yard, and I'm only going to do it once or twice. I'll set up a camera. I'll put a little trap on there so when it comes, motion detects it, takes a picture. I baited the owl, but I didn't change its behavior, and I didn't introduce a food source. Is that bad? I'm not going to let you know my opinion on that one to the end. I'll give you a third scenario. It becomes a little bit trickier now. I'm a professional photographer. I have stories. You guys know I love stories. This is actually based off of a real story. I'm not going to put anybody's names out there. I just remember years ago, I was a little shocked. There was a photographer, a very, very talented bird photographer doing like raptor workshops. And in that process, they had worked with another kind of specialist, like a biologist, like an expert on raptors. And I remember seeing in the description of that, "We will bait the raptors." And I thought, oof, like that's like, for me, I wouldn't be comfortable putting that out for the public. Like people are going to be mad at them. And there was some backlash to that. Like there seriously was. The explanation kind of was like, listen, I'm a trained professional. I know what I'm doing. Not going to feed these store-bought mice. We're going to do it the right way, but we're going to monetize it. So now I've shifted kind of the similar scenario to my home, but I've shifted it now to making money off of it. But remember, I'm still not changing the behavior of the owl. It's a one-time, or raptor in this case, it's a one-time deal. We're going to spend a day. We're going to give it some food or encourage it to come in somehow. One-time deal. Another true story, I had a friend that would shoot eagles. And there was a guy that collected deer carcasses. It is what we do as society, right? Like we collect these deer carcasses and we dispose of them in a farm field somewhere in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, where I live, right? Now what's going to come to the deer? You're going to get vultures, and in this case you would get bald eagles. Sometimes you'd even get golden eagles coming in to feed on these, just a buffet of dead deer. Now is it wrong for me to set up a blind there? I mean, it's baiting. 100%, that is a baited animal. But it's going to happen whether I'm there or not. That situation is going to happen. What if I charge somebody to go in there? What if I make money on it? That's a tricky one for me. I'm going to tell you where I stand on all these scenarios. I'll give you the last scenario. The last scenario is kind of the other part of that professional making money, get photographs. It could be for your own personal gain or attention, or it could be because you're going to get photographs for other people, like you're going to host some kind of photo tour or workshop, and now you're feeding animals. So the classic example is I've got a snowy owl or a great gray owl, and I'm going to throw mice out there. I'll let the owl come in, and when it comes in, we're going to get the perfect shot. Is that okay? And most people, regardless of where you felt on these other issues, there's a line there. Now, part of the reason that and I'll give you where my line is in just a second, but part of the reason that this is part of my line, this is a no, is because in this case, we've done a couple things. One, we've introduced potentially a food source that isn't part of this bird's natural diet or this raptor's natural diet. That's not good. The second part, probably the much more important part, is we may be conditioning animals to become comfortable with us. Now, this is the part that I have a real problem with. In any video you've watched me talk about this, it's never a good idea, even when it seems benign. To me, it's not a good idea for animals to be comfortable with humans. I believe that we are not good for nature. Just look around you, see what's going on. We're not good as a human species as a whole with nature. And so the closer an animal becomes comfortable with us, even if the intentions are good, it probably puts that animal in harm's way at some point. Brings them closer to roads, brings them closer to civilization. There are hunters out there actually trying to hunt these creatures. And so while they may start to identify a human as good, they may see a human and come to it. Have you ever been to a pond with ducks that get fed? Just walk up to the shoreline. They all start coming to you. That's probably not a great thing. If it's in a public park, no big deal. But in the wild, ducks probably shouldn't just swim up to us and take food from us and get comfortable with us, because there may be a hunter over there that they're going to get a little bit lazy about, and those wild instincts will start to be lost. Wild instincts are often what protect these animals in the wild. So that's my continuum. All right, so we went from bird feeder, we had the home owl that we're feeding its natural diet one time, no big deal. We've got the carrion, so we're putting carrion there. It's going to be there anyway. So in this case, the dead stuff's going to be there. Why not just set up a tent and photograph behind it so they don't see us? The next case is maybe a professional that's doing it the right way, not influencing the behavior, but making money off of the practice. And then the last one is kind of rehabituating animals, feeding it a part that's not part of its diet. My line is actually kind of around bird feeder. I wouldn't be comfortable as a wildlife photographer kind of talking about ethics. I probably wouldn't be comfortable saying I'm against baiting and then feeding that owl a mouse, even if it was part of its diet, even if it was on my own house, even if it was one time, and no harm, no foul. I'm telling you, in that situation, guys, there's no harm to that bird. I probably wouldn't do it. I've never done it. I'm assuming if I would have done it, I would have done it by now. The carrion was an interesting one because I almost did that one. And I don't know that I wouldn't. It's a really, really difficult one, only because I'm not setting up that station on purpose. The roadkill has to be dealt with, and in this case, it was where the roadkill was being dumped. It just happened to be that somebody figured out, hey, I can go there and shoot this stuff. That was a tough one, but I'm leaning towards actually, that's not awful. I know I'm going to get some pushback on that one, guys. I know I'm going to get some pushback. The other stuff, baiting, even if done the right way, running it as a profession, I do fear a risk of habituating animals. And I do think that once you do that, those lines get too blurred too fast. So my line is kind of down by bird feeder somewhere. I want one more kind of theme around this is culturally how it's different. So I got two stories on this one. I love stories, guys. This is a quick thoughts. Might be getting a little long on the thoughts on this one, but it's an important concept. Two things to think about. Is it different in different parts of the country, and is it different in different parts of the world? So I'll give you at least two stories. I may have three, but I'll give you a quick story. My friend who is very conscious on ethics and denounces baiting birds. And I saw him make a comment on somebody's image, and it was really nice. And I said, I'm surprised because that's a baited animal. And he was kind of like, oh. And I said, look at the feed. Like they're all baited, every single one of them, no matter what it was. Some more benign than others, but you could tell. I mean, if you've been doing wildlife photography a lot, you can tell a baited bird most of the time. And he was like, oh, now this person lived in Europe and very nice guy. Like the photographer was a super nice guy. And part of it was, well, he's a really nice guy. I don't think he means any harm. And so it was different. And I thought, well, but if somebody in America or United States had done that, would you think differently? Like if you saw somebody setting up, environments and putting food out for birds and putting perches up to take pictures, would that feel good to you? So I got into this idea, like, are we different in different countries? Like, is there a different attitude in Europe toward baiting? And over the years, I will tell you, I believe there is. So a couple other examples of this. I used to see pictures of goshawks, and they were like perfect. And I was like, oh my gosh, like Sweden and Finland, they must have goshawks just flying around all over the place. Then I started to realize they all kind of look the same. And after 5 years of seeing the same images, you start to realize it's the same place. It's a blind. Now, how would anybody, anywhere, rely on knowing that an animal is coming to a perch, and that is to put some bait out? Now, that bait may be part of their diet. They may not be reprogramming or habituating these animals. I'm not talking about the ethics of any one particular person, so please, it's not the point. It is more about the attitudes of the country. It seems to be much more acceptable in certain parts of the world. I'll use Europe as an example, because I don't often see those types of setups in America. Now, I'm not saying they don't exist. There are game farms in America, terrible practice. There are absolutely baited workshops in America, but I haven't seen a lot of that particular style where it is, I'm going to say obviously baited. Most people that do those workshops where they bait animals, raptors or owls, they kind of don't talk about it. They kind of conceal it. They let their clients know, like, hey, don't mention this. The ones in Europe don't seem to have a problem. And here's the example I'll use. This is the example that started this video a year or two ago. I'm not going to mention any photographers. I was watching YouTube one time, and I don't watch a ton of wildlife videos, believe it or not, on YouTube. Every now and then one comes up that's interesting or something pops in my feed and I'll give it a look. And it was a photographer in a blind that he had built. And I got the sense that this wasn't the type of photographer who's going to like go out into the wild. And he made this video. He's going to go to his blind and he's going to capture a picture of this bird. And I thought, okay, well, the bird must come a lot. And I kid you not, he takes a dead pigeon in his hand, and it is a nail out in front of his blind, and he just plops it. Listen, I may be embellishing this a little bit, but this is the way I remember it. He plops this dead pigeon on a nail, gets back into the blind, and he shows the photos of the bird that he took coming in to get it. Now, I went down to the comments, and I'm like, this guy's going to get lit up, because if that was me doing that in the United States, whew, man, I am going to get lit up. Not one negative comment. I couldn't believe it. I'm reading the comments. Everything was, oh, you're great. This is beautiful. Everything's great. And I thought, that has got to be culturally different. Like, there's got to be a cultural difference. So that's kind of the point of this video was twofold. The gray of baiting subjects, particularly raptors and owls, since I'm a bird photographer, and then the cultural differences around it. Like, are there? And here's the thing. This is one of those videos where your comments matter. Down in the comments, you let me know. Do you have a line in there? Tell me about the bird feeders. Like, have you ever thought about bird feeders as baiting birds, or is it just a benign practice that is done to help birds? Tell me about that. Tell me about the scenario where there's something occurring naturally or something that's going to be there and you just take advantage of it. You didn't create the situation. So think about the roadkill that gets piled up somewhere. And listen, I didn't put the roadkill there. It's a part of our society. We've got to deal with it somehow. We can't leave it on the side of the road. That, by the way, is more dangerous because then the birds come to the side of the road. We want to get, if you care about birds and raptors, get the roadkill off the road as soon as possible. So if I do that, and then I just kind of set up a blind over there and nobody knows any better, and I don't have any impact on the birds doing it, Tell me your thoughts on that one. That's to me, that is the trickiest of all. Now, the professional baiting of birds, maybe you're okay with it. Maybe you're like, Scott, you're just overly sensitive. Like, they're just birds. They don't matter. Like, they'll be fine. They'll figure it out. They have wings. If they don't like something, they'll move. And again, my biggest concern with that aspect has always been not just the introduction of food, but the reliance upon it, and then their comfort level with humans. So I need you to think about that. If you're defending that practice, you think about that one, because you got to convince me that I'm wrong on that particular point. And then this cultural difference. Are there cultural difference? I didn't really talk about other areas because the bird photography I see personally, the raptor photography, is normally from the United States or from Europe. Those are the two that I'll use. I'm not going to get into Asia and South America because I don't see as much from those areas of the world. But let me know. Are there cultural differences that you're aware of? So a quick thoughts video that got a little long because I told a lot of stories, but I hope you enjoy that. Sometimes that's part of the channel. You know, we want to share and tell stories. I do like to tell a good story. I do hope, by the way, you are subscribed to the channel though, because in addition to these quick, or in this case, longer thought videos, I do some product reviews, and I talk a lot just about wildlife photography in these quick thoughts videos, but I try to break this up and have a variety of content. So you will see things like product reviews in there as well. And I think you're really going to appreciate some of those reviews, whether they're for wildlife or general photography. And I also have some videos that just teach basic photography principles, aperture and shutter speed, things like that. So check out the playlist if you're interested in any of that. Hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed to the channel. That's really, really important. Hit the bell for notifications, let you know when I have a new video out. And the thumbs up button will push this content out to like-minded people. So make sure you hit that like button. And as always, I hope we can continue to find inspiration in wildlife together.